all prophecies point to Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to know what God is doing in the world, you have to ask the question, what is God doing in Israel? Very specifically, what is he doing in Jerusalem? You see a revival, a growing revival. You see political upheaval, such as in most countries today, there are issues. And then there is the very real and present danger of those who want to eradicate Israel. For example, Iran, Syria, Hezbollah, which means Party of God. Those are the terrorists that are up in Lebanon. And Hamas, which is the Hebrew word for violence. It's a slap in Israel's face. And those guys are in Gaza. And that's where, 15,000 plus rockets have been launched into Israel over the last couple of decades. And so you have all those moving parts as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the rabbis look at that and they believe what evangelicals believe. They believe in what is referenced as the Battle of Gog and Magog, Ezekiel 38 and 9.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where a coalition of nations led by Persia, which is Iran. And keep in mind, when we talk about Iran and these various countries, we're talking about 20th century borders. And the biblical borders may be larger, may be smaller. But in Ezekiel 38, the prophet lists this coalition empowered by a great power from the north that will come against Israel. So you have Russia and Iran are buddies.
Mm-hmm.
And Iran feeds what's going on in Syria. They feed what's going on in Hezbollah, also Hamas. And even today, what is it, June 2? Even today, on the Times of Israel News, for example, it was talking about Netanyahu and the military talking and the politicians talking strategy on the coming war with Iran on many fronts.
Mm-hmm.
So all those moving parts are very, very important and significant to remind us who believe in Yeshua, who believe in Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
that we are living in the latter days, latter years. When will he return? No one knows. But Jesus said, when you see this stuff, look up.
Mm-hmm. What, in your opinion, what is the most significant thing that you see that's tying in besides everything you've just covered?
Well, I think the key would be there on a couple of fronts. The one would be the revival. You will not see me again until you say, blessed is he, comes in the name of the Lord. And also, there is a very powerful movement to build a temple. We have the red heifer on the planet now, the existence of the red heifer, which is very important. There's an organization called the Temple Institute in Jerusalem in the Jewish quarter. Where they have the temple implements, they're recreating according to biblical specifications. They even have blueprints for the next temple. On a humorous note, they even include a heating system for the floor because the priests go about barefoot, and it gets cold in the winter, so those are very important components that are unfolding even as we speak. And this all involves the Temple Mount. And on the Temple Mount, you have the Dome of the Rock, you have the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and it's like the third holiest site in Islam. For the next temple to be built, and this is very provocative, the dome has to go, the Al-Aqsa has to go away. That will cause a worldwide reaction, specifically in the Muslim world. And what would bring about the Battle of Gog and Magog? Perhaps everybody has theories. My theory is that is going to center around whatever's going to take place on the Temple Mount. And if the religious become empowered, whereas they start to build this temple, the reaction could very easily involve this coalition we referred to moments ago in Ezekiel 38:9. So those are very important things that I'm looking at. And it's exciting and concerning all at the same time.
Mhm.
Because when this stuff happens, there's going to be a lot of carnage. There will be people who die,
Mhm.
you know, in such a war. And those kinds of things I look at.
How are the people in Israel dealing with everything that's going on with the rockets coming in and things happening now in the division of the country? And how are they dealing?
Wow, great question. Um, well, regarding the rockets, listen, one of the areas, as you know, we feed children and Holocaust survivors in Israel. One of the cities that we feed children in is a city called Sderot. And if you look on a map, an Israeli map, and you see Gaza, the little section of Gaza, just right northeast of Gaza, you'll see this town called Sderot. And north, you have Ashkelon, Ashdod.
Mhm.
And Sderot has, again, that town, it's really I had opportunity to speak with the captain of the police department there, and he communicated that it's basically the world's most bombed city without an official declaration of war, because thousands upon thousands of rockets. And let me just share a story, and this will pretty well answer the question regarding the rockets. Um, in right before the pandemic, November 2019, we were there in Sderot. I was there I had a board member with me. Uh, and we were meeting someone and talking about how we can help with the children and so forth. And we showed up. Now, I'm a typical baby boomer. I didn't have my phone on. We drove from Jerusalem down to Sderot, and we came upon the city, and oh my word, something's going on. You hear the sirens going off, what they call the red color sirens. And I turned my phone on, and there were a dozen messages: don't come, we're under attack. It was the beginning, the first day of a 3-day barrage. Over 400 rockets were
Wow.
targeted the city. When we were there, a rocket hit a house. We went over to see if we could help. And it just so happened there was, this anchor woman, news anchor woman, I-24 News, with the very frightened camera person. He got the short straw. He had to be there during this. And anyway, she said, "Can we interview you?" We said, "Yes," and so on and so forth. "Why are you here?" And so we had opportunity to share a little bit. But on our way out of the city, now I have great respect for the military. Never was in the military. Nixon cut the draft. I went off to university. And we're usually there before the rockets hit or after the rockets hit. Sometimes during, but the rockets land over there, not near. But on the way out, we had a driver, myself and a board member, and this big, loud boom. A rocket landed, I don't know, about 20 yards or so from our van. And there was a shock wave that caused our van, the skill of our driver kept the van from toppling over. And something I did not expect, Nancy, I did not know this. You could smell whatever propelled that rocket, the rocket fuel, the powder, whatever it was. You could smell that. And I asked friends who are veterans of the, Iraqi, Afghan, and they said, "Oh yeah, you smell that all the time." I did not know that.
Oh.
Oh man, I never so frightened.
Mhm.
And which explains the children we minister to in that city. They have, a great deal of PTSD. They're under this rocket attack constantly, where you're sitting there talking to them and they're rocking. They don't even realize they're rocking, back and forth. Anyway, so it's very complicated in that respect. The rockets can hit Tel Aviv, they can hit Jerusalem now, and from the north they can hit Haifa, all these places. It's a very real and present danger. And I admire the Israelis. There's a resilience. They clean up whatever carnage and then they go about their day.
You know, in your book, what is the part of your book that you would like people to know about?
That God will help us.
Mm.
And he gives us hope through his Messiah.
Mhm.
And that gives us the courage, the strength to get up in the morning, to face such a demonically fierce, evil, upside down world. And to answer your question, I think that would be the heartbeat of it.
Mhm.
And he says, I will help you. Isn't that wonderful?
I love it.
I know. I always
Yeah.
think of Peter. And you've heard the sermons. He goes out, he walks on the water, and he sinks, and the Lord reaches out his hand, and it reminds us. It smacks of Isaiah 41. By the right hand, I will take you by the right hand. I will help you. Do not be afraid. We hear the sermons, and what we hear is the shame basing. Oh, ye of little faith. But what we don't hear, well, Peter did get out of the boat. He did walk on the water. When the Lord picked him up by his hand, he walked back on the water to get back into the boat. And I would love to have heard that conversation. It's not written for us to know, but there was a conversation of Peter and the Lord walking back on into the boat.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, that's what the Lord does for us. He
Yeah.
picks us up, he walks with us, as we're on the water, and he whispers in our ears, he says.
Yeah.
And then you shout it, whatever it is he whispers to you. And that.
That's wonderful. You know, it's funny you say I will, because we were just studying Exodus with my Bible study group, and we were talking about how God says I will,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
I will show you mercy.
He didn't say
Well,
may. He's, listen, if you're a believer, you are his son, his daughter. You are a child of the king. And they used to say that long ago, child of the king.
yeah.
Not that I'm afraid, but we are.
Yeah.
We're children of the king. Ah,
I love it. Well, where can they find out more about you and get a copy of your book, Hope
oh,
Rising?
yes, ma'am. Well, you can, first of all, go to our website. It's rather long, and we haven't figured out how to make that smaller, but it's israeltodayministries.org. And if you go on the website, it'll show you all about us and the books and how you can get one, this and that. Or you can email me at ITM for Israel Today Ministries, ITMDRJEFF. So ITM Dr. Jeff at gmail.com. Or if they prefer snail mail, ITM PO Box 150288, Arlington, Texas 76015.
Well, what would you like to leave my audience with today?
Well, this is something I always say at the tail end of any lecture or sermon I give as a guest speaker. I would say three things of that I ask of you. If you think of us at all, we covet your prayers. Number one. Number two, to Sha'alu Shalom Yerushalayim, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And number three, if God touches their heart to help underwrite us, we feed kids, we feed Holocaust survivors. And I tell people, all this stuff I do, the books I write, the places I go and speak, the churches, the colleges, universities, wherever I'm asked, and wonderful moments like this, there's a sense of urgency. I do all of this simply to share with people there are children in Israel that are hungry, 1.1 million to be exact. 1.1 million in poverty in Israel. And we're talking a nation of about 9 million people. All you got to do is Google that. And then about 1 in 3 Holocaust survivors in Israel, which comes out to around 50,000 or so, are also impoverished. So we stand in the gap there. We help provide meals, educational material for the children, and for the Holocaust survivors. This is what we do, plain and simple. And so all this stuff, the writing, the speaking, is to bring attention to that.
Matthew 24:36 says, "But about that day or hour no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father." And Matthew 24:44 says, "So you also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come in an hour when you do not expect him." It may seem like we won't see the day of Jesus coming, but be ready for him to appear, because he will come suddenly and won't be expected. So have your lamps ready. Do you listen to the call of God? Because God speaks to you every day. Are you listening to the call?
What sound is heard only by the heart? It is the call. Follow